We are doing a house Q&A today amongst all the what I eat in a week, weekly vlogs, what I eat in a day, house updates. I just think it's necessary to sit down and have a little bit of a Q&A catch up with the questions that you dudes asked on the gram. I got various questions about the house, so we're just going to be answering them in this very video. I'm matching my walls, kind of, which we panelled ourselves. This is the dining area, that's the living room back there. I am going to be doing a house tour. That was one of the questions very, very soon. Well, next video. We're not quite finished on the furnishing, but it's enough to give a rundown of the house. Although I'm sure if you've been watching the weekly vlogs, you'll be seeing sneaky peeks of what we've been doing around the house. Let's just go with the very first question. There's not going to be an order to them. I'm just going to answer them as we go. Did you go through a mortgage broker? I'm so confused on how to find the right bank to go with. Buying a house, dudes, I'm no expert, and I never was from the very start until now. So this isn't expertise advice, but I would say Amanda was very good at dealing with a lot of the housing situ, but I would just owe it to our mortgage broker, Scott, and I will leave his details in the description box down below. You can go reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help. I think he was the main reason the process of us moving house was so quick. I'm gonna say quick because moving house takes time and nobody tells you how long it takes, but it takes time. We put our offer down back in November time and I thought I was ready to move in December. Little did I know it was gonna be April. So yes, we did go through a mortgage broker. His name is Scott. He gives great financial advice and he is a great financial advisor. So if you are in the process, if you're starting to look for a house, do reach out to Scott. I know one of his missions is to help young people buy their first property and get on the housing market, which is what he did for us. And we were so happy with his services. Super helpful, answered all our questions, made us understand the process a lot more clearer. How did you afford buying a house at such a young age? So I'm 26 years old and Amanda's 29, he's turned 30 this year actually. In November. Myself and Armando have been together for 7 years, 4 years of which we were long distance, and I'm gonna say like 2 years within the relationship we had an idea that we wanted to live together, so we have genuinely just been saving ever since, and that obviously does accumulate some dollar when we do work. I was a full-time diagnostic radiographer for the NHS for 3 years, so that provided some source, and I was living at my parents' home in London at the time, so I've never rented and I've never had an expense to pay out for, so if you can just imagine, I've just been saving since working as a full-time radiographer and being self-employed as a content creator, YouTuber, and etc. Armando, he is a personal trainer and has been since I've met him. He built a clientele up here in Wales, and that is one of the reasons why I'm gonna say compensated and made the decision that I was gonna move to Wales. PTing in London, as amazing as it is, I think the fitness scene there is incredible. And I did tell him I was discussing it with him when we were deciding where to live. Come on, come to the best side of the country. But then I just soon realised when actually looking for houses that London is something else, especially where I actually live in London with my parents. Obviously everything has risen in price, including house prices in particular. Back then when they might have bought it, or back then when your parents may have bought their house, is much lower than it is now. And I just made sense of it where I can go visit London anytime, my friends can visit me anytime, I can visit them anytime. It's only a 2.5 hour trip away. I just put the pros and cons together, and if I wanted to buy a house at this age, I decided to move to Wales where it's more affordable and I'm still gonna live a great lifestyle by having extra dollar to spend on holidays and furniture, because it's one thing buying a house and putting down that deposit, but it's then the furniture and the bills and everything that else comes with actually living your life. So I just thought it just makes more sense to me in Wales with Armando because we were never going to rent. We both were fortunate enough to live with our parents whilst being able to do so. And so that had given us enough time to save the dollar and put down that deposit for our home, which we're living in. And I still can't believe it because I'm a homeowner. I'm a homeowner. Any setbacks, negatives, or things that went wrong? I would say it would just be something that I think is common amongst many people that are in the process of buying a house. When it comes to like exchanging contracts and actually finalizing the date to move in, I would say that was just a slight setback in terms of agreeing which date each person was happy to move in to their properties, because it works as a chain. Luckily for us, the people that owned this property previously we're looking for someone like a first-time buyer to purchase the property, as it would work in their favour. There'd be less people in the chain and it would speed up the process for them to move into their new home. We were in a chain of 3, so it wasn't too complicated. How much for the deposit? I'm going to be completely transparent for you dudes. Both mutually agreed that this lump of money was going to be more beneficial for us in the long time. Obviously, the more that you put down initially, the less you got to pay per month. Typically, without getting into detail of interest rates and stuff like that. So we are on a fixed rate, and we put down a deposit of 60k, so that's 30k between us. The finalized property price of this property was around 280k. This property is a 3-bedroom property. It has a dining area, living area, kitchen, 2 bathrooms, a conservatory, garden, shed, garage and driveway. If you look at the same kind of property in the area that I lived in London or nearby London, you're not going to get nearly as much as you would here there. So again, a little bit of a no-brainer for me. And obviously house values go up in price, and now that we have this initial investment of being on the property ladder, it's like you can only go up from here kind of. How long was the process? One word: long. Very long. But in all seriousness, like I said, we put down the offer back in November, it got accepted, and since then we had been waiting up until April 26th when we moved in, and it wasn't literally the day before we got told you're ready to move in and collect the key. The length of time between the actual agreed price and the exchange of contracts, that's the longest kind of process. But again, everybody has a different experience. This was just myself and Amanda's experience in particular. Was it difficult to find a house? So obviously we put down the offer back in November, but we actually started looking for a house in April 2023, and it was a bit before that where we initiated the actual looking for house process. But I would say in April 2023, that is when we were getting really serious, being on Rightmove, and I really love Rightmove. I just love looking at houses. They come in all shapes and sizes, different prices as well, let me tell you. That's when we kind of decided where we want to live, what kind of house do we want, what kind of property do we want, terrace, semi-detached, this is a semi-detached property, and etc. And literally it took us from April up until, I'm gonna say, October to find this property. We then went and viewed it. Obviously we had the difficulty also of living long distance, so it was kind of a thing where I had to come down to view this property and other properties on several occasions, or Amanda had to go view a house by himself. So that kind of put a spanner in the works, I guess, would answer the setbacks or negatives in finding a property. I would have to come down from London to actually visit it. We kind of knew when we visited this property, this is the property that we wanted to have. I think it just kind of clicks when you're inside the property, and everything just makes sense when you're inside the property and you're like, yeah, I could see this being our home. And it's so surreal that I can call it our home, because it's so lovely that we've spent all those years together and it's actually come together. Why Wales, not London? I kind of answered that amongst the other kind of questions. I would say the main reason is because Amanda already lives here, and so I just decided that I'm going to move my lifestyle here with him because the affordability of properties here and just more buck for your money. I'm a lot more flexible in my work as well, as I'm self-employed, in the sense that I can work from pretty much anywhere. I can move to Australia, I can move anywhere, and I could work from home and do what I do, which I'm forever grateful that I am able to do that and the opportunity to be able to do that. It's taken many years to kind of get to this stage, and if I didn't kind of like put in that background work as a diagnostic radiographer, doing this part-time and then making it full-time, I wouldn't be here today, if that makes sense. So I kind of did it alongside my radiography work, and I'm just forever grateful that I can still do it going forward. How did you know what percentage deposit to aim for? I'm saving but feel it might change. Armando was kind of like the numbers guy in this. He kind of put down a price and checked if we were able to afford it together, and if we can just put that sum of money down, which literally just gets taken away. Like when it gets taken away on the day where you have to exchange contracts, you're just like, oh damn, That's for all now that I'm an actual adult. And it was a bit of like a sickening feeling because obviously I've never paid for rent other than when I was in uni. I've always kind of lived with my parents other than when I was in university for 3 years. So it was just like a bit of a reality check that, damn, she gotta pay bills now. Actually curious, how do you like living together after being so long distance for so long? Any problems, homesickness, etc.? Obviously sometimes I feel like I miss my parents and my family and my friends back home in London. Especially I've had pretty much my whole life living in London and having my family constantly around me, having my friends constantly around me. So I do sometimes feel homesick, but I don't get too homesick because I know I'm able to visit them. It's not like I live actually in Australia where you've got to take a 24-hour flight to get back home. It's a 2.5-hour car ride for me. So I know that if I want to go visit them or if I am feeling a little bit homesick, I can just drive home or I can get the coach or I can get the train. It's very accessible to go to and from my home here to my home back in London with my parents. But living together after being so long distance for so long, it is just so beautiful. I'm gonna say beautiful because we waited so long to actually live together. Myself and Armando, we are all so easygoing and we've always kind of known that we love each other without getting too soppy, but it's just the facts there. And we're very easygoing, so it's not very hard for us to live together. We don't bicker much, we don't argue at all. So I would just say so far living together, it's just been easy breeze and a beautiful experience so far. That was one thing that a lot of people questioned me about, like how you've never lived with him properly. I've been on holidays with him for at least like 2 weeks or whatever, so I've kind of had that feel. Or when I was in uni, he would come and visit my uni accommodation on the weekends, but I've never actually lived with him. So why would it make sense to buy a house with someone that you've never lived with? I just knew myself and I know Armando and we know our relationship. We just knew that it was going to be possible, and it has been possible for us personally, but I guess it's all personal experience. Is it less expensive in the long run to buy instead of rent? Pretty much if you ask anyone, I would say they would say to prioritize to buy a house if you are able to do so, mainly because you're never owning the property that you're paying into when you rent, and so all that money is just there. And obviously I've never been in that position where I've been forced to rent for any reason, like work opportunities, as when I finished my degree in Cardiff University, I moved back into my parents' home and worked as a radiographer in one of the biggest hospitals in London from my parents' home, if that makes sense. So I would commute to the hospital, to my friend's home, and it wasn't a long journey at all. It was like a 30-minute bus drive. But yes, I would say it is less expensive to buy a property and have that investment and keep it as an investment between the both of your partner or yourself if you're able to do it by yourself and carry that forward. Someone says, is it hard to find construction workers for renovations if y'all are trying to do that? So we've not actually had a home where we need to literally uplift the house and do crazy things to it. The most we've kind of done is rip up wallpaper, which is honestly not fun. Sanded it down and painted the walls in certain rooms of the house. So far we have done that to the bedroom, currently Amanda's office. We've painted this room and the walk-in wardrobe, and also the conservatory out there, which I did by myself, proudly. But in terms of doing things to the house, in terms of like construction or renovation or uplifting things, we do want to redo the driveway. We want to take away the brick that is currently on the driveway, as we're not really fond of it. We kind of want to paint outside the front of the house. Also the shed and the garden we want to completely redo. So those are the things kind of we want to completely redo, but they're more the exterior of the house rather than the interior. The property came with a brand new kitchen as the previous owners renovated the kitchen. Otherwise, we kind of put those panels up ourselves and we've just added home furnishings to the house. We didn't really want something that we wanted to completely renovate, because if you kind of think about it, because we had been long distance for so long, I didn't want it to be a thing where when we finally moved in together, we would actually not be so settled as we are now. So I kind of wanted it to be something where we'd be a lot more settled more quickly in the grand scheme of things. Did you have any unexpected problems? I kind of answered this question, but I'm going to kind of go into detail on the actual process now. So we put the offer down in November. It got accepted and we had to wait from November all the way up until April for the exchange of contracts for legal reasons and checking between each of the homeowners. Us, the first home buyers, the previous owners of this home, and the ones at the top of the chain. So all the papers had to be checked thoroughly and all the stuff that goes on with the solicitors. From the actual putting down the offer until the exchange of contracts, we had to look for a survey to survey this house, and kind of what happens there is that they survey a house and check all the issues with the house and make you aware of the issue of the house. So it may change the price of the property if you liaise with the real estate and the homeowners, and it also may be a factor of you don't want to buy the property anymore. So the survey kind of helps you decide, is this home actually purchased? We had that survey done, everything was fine. The grand scheme of things, there were little bumps and lumps here, but we knew that the house wasn't going to be completely perfect, but we also knew that we could correct those things in the house. The exchange of contracts is when you put the deposit down. So when you put the deposit down, that is kind of like the key moment because you know you're going to collect the keys. So that's like the overview of it. But like I said, Scott, I will leave his details in the description box down below because he kind of made us more aware of the process and kind of taught us the process. So I have a lot of thanks to give to Scott for that. But in terms of problems, we didn't have any issues as kind of we were first time buyers, so that actually worked in everybody's favours because we were not liable to any other chains than the chains above us. Me and my girlfriend are saving to buy a house, but we have no clue what's a reasonable amount to save. So it's something that you would have to agree on with each other. Obviously, Armando put down this like deposit price and asked if I was okay with that and if I was able to afford it, and we mutually agreed that we were able to afford it, vice versa. So it's something that needs to be discussed between you both, and also heavily relies on where you want to live, like what country you want to live in, and the affordability of the house prices in that country or area. But I would say you would need to rack up a decent amount in your bank account, if I'm honest with you, just so that once you purchase the property, you're obviously able to buy furniture, pay the bills, and also live your life still. Because you don't want to have a home, no furniture, and not be able to fund your lifestyle either. So it's all relative to yourself and your girlfriends, I would say. How did you know this was your house? Did you guys look at other options first? We looked at about 4 other options before deciding on this one. There were many reasons why we knocked a lot of houses down, and mainly to do with the area. We knew we wanted like a friendly neighborhood, and I would say this is a very quiet and friendly neighborhood. It's not a main road, it's a very residential road. The kids come out to play. I had the sweetest experience the other time. I literally was parking up my car on our drive and I was just getting stared at by these 6 children right outside our house, and they were like, "Hey new neighbor," as I came out the car. I took my AirPods off and I thought, I'll say hi, even though they're like young children, just to be friendly. And I go, "Hi," and they get 2 little girls out of the 6 that were standing there staring at me saying, "Hey neighbour," was just like, "Hi, I used to live there." So they've obviously come back to the neighbourhood to play with their friends, and I just thought that was beyond sweet. I was just like, "Oh, have a nice day," and all that stuff. It was just really cute and I loved it. First time buyer myths. Please tell me how much it actually costs for fees as a first time buyer. There's many breakdown of costs that we've got to pay out for as first time buyers. One of them being the deposit, and then the monthly mortgage payments, the council tax. We had to also pay stamp duty because in Wales you have to pay stamp duty. It's different to England, where if your house costs less than 400,000, you don't have to pay it as a first time buyer. That did not account for us, unfortunately. There's also water, gas and electric bills that you gotta pay out for. So the actual costs for things really vary on the area and where you actually live. Did you have a Help to Buy or lifetime ISA savings account to help you with the cost? Yes, I did, and that's something I haven't mentioned already, but I would say that's something that you should look into if you're looking to buy a home or you're saving to buy a home. I did that a year and a half ago, and it built up a decent amount to put that as part of my down payment in the deposit. So I had a lump sum for savings in my actual bank account, and then I had the lifetime ISA that I can include into the deposit. I use the Nude app. If you want to read more on that, I would download the app, and they've got a whole like Q&A section on that app on how to use it, and a lot of advice for first-time buyers on there, so really recommend the Nude app. And if you're unaware of what a LISA is, it's kind of like a government scheme where they help first-time buyers buy a home, where you put in a monthly amount each month, and it builds interest, and they also add a bonus each month. So essentially, if I'm putting it into like simple terms, you're just getting like extra bit of money by saving, and it just makes sense to do. So I highly recommend the Nude finance app, although I think they've changed it now to Tembo, so it's called Tembo. The rest of the questions that I'm going to close the video on are kind of surrounded by how's it like living together after having that long distance, and also not missing friends, family and your lifestyle in London. But I kind of have spoken about it in this video already. As much as I loved living in London, I also loved living with Armando, and that kind of like answers those questions. Me and Armando have a great relationship. We just vibe off of each other. We are both quite funny individuals, and we're kind of just like a match without making this about our relationship and like all those things. We are just a little bit of a match for each other. Now, I don't know when that's gonna happen, but when it does, it will be documented online. I tell you that. My Lebanese father is always like, Amanda, when is a wedding? When is engagement? When is pregnancy? Because that is just what my dad is like. It would all happen in due course, and Amanda has his own structure or plan in his head of the dates when he'd like it to happen. So I'm just gonna pretend that I know nothing, and I won't expect anything until it actually happens. When it does happen, I know it will be magical, and it will be kind of like a completion. A completion, because that's another thing people were very skeptical about, like, how are you buying a house and you're not even married? How are you buying a house and you're not even engaged? We just know that we are right for each other, and it's kind of just a personal preference that we've decided to prioritize buying a house over the other different life steps. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do these kind of these big life moments, and there's no even like a right or wrong in wanting to buy a house or not. Like, you live life the way you want to live your life. Don't expect it to live how someone tells you to live your life. This is kind of what we've just wanted it to be between us. And we're both sensible adults. We're loyal to each other. We know what we want to do and what we want to get out. Living in our home together and our future plans. I really do hope you enjoyed watching this Q&A. Hopefully it gave you an insight into how we kind of bought our first home, shared some details on how to buy a home, and kind of the costs that come with that. I'll leave more details for our solicitors, survey, people that we used, and stuff like that in the description box down below, so you can help yourself and look into those as well. Highly recommend all the services that we did use. There may or may not be a house tour in the next upload next week. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you liked it by giving me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me, and I'll see you in the next one.